Good morning, Rev Walter here, and glad to have you on the call. As you know, it's a Monday, and when it's Monday, I'm the first guy that shows up. And when I show up, we take you through the usual. So, of course, the aim is to get you all connected, get you all on board. And so this morning, like every other morning, I am here to run with the subject that you see over there, which is Know Your GDI, which is your God defined identity. Who are you really? I'm going to be delving quite deep into this subject, but just before I do that, two things. Number one, as you start, trooping in, remember to share, to comment, to tag, to like. And also those of you that will watch this by YouTube later, if you haven't subscribed, you know the deal. Go down there to your right, bottom there, you should see a subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and then click the notifications bell to be notified of any videos that I may share. Later on today, let me also take advantage to make an announcement. I may or may not be able to. I hope I will. I will be sharing another subject, so I'll come later with what I call the Watchman's Update. I won't mention it here because this is not the platform to do so. Also, let me take this opportunity to mention that we come every single day of the week. As long as it's a working day, Mondays to Friday, we are here. Today, you have me, and I'm currently running Unleashing Your Destiny on this platform, so make sure you're part of that. And then on Tuesday, you have Sunshine Sylvia. She's actually on the call, but just listening in, and she does mindset change program. She has quite some exciting things going on that program, so you want to make sure you're part of it where you can. And then on Wednesdays, it's an open market day. So this Wednesday, I believe Dr. Sunshine Sylvia will be sharing on some of the developments and what's going on in her space and the mindset change program. Then on Thursday, Dr. Nelly Kangwa comes through with another life-changing episode of Prosperity Insight. You don't want to miss that. She has many, many exciting teachings around that, and you want to be part of it. So it's a mentoring program, and you don't want to miss that. Then on Friday, we have Dr. Jackie, who comes through with health tips. And last Friday, she was on. This Friday, we look forward to hearing our intakes. And so every single day, we are committed to this 7:30 mentorship platform where you can come and tap into some really brilliant insight that can help you get started on the journey. Of course, we don't go into super detail. So if you're one of those that really wants to be educated in a much deeper and more powerful way, I would suggest seriously that you get yourself on a mentoring program. We all have separate mentorship programs here, and so what you want to do is get yourself on those, and that way you will be helped in as far as becoming part of what we're doing is concerned. Now, today I am doing a very, very interesting topic, which is Know Your GDI, God Defined Identity. Who are you really? I will be doing a presentation, so we will be switching into presentation mode. But one thing I want to mention very quickly also, even as we go into the presentation mode, is that those of you that are interested and want to take advantage of what I'm going to share, you want to make sure you go to the links I've shared. So there is a comprehensive values list. I've put a link in the comments. So whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you can see that link. You can go right there and you can get yourself a copy. I noticed that my LinkedIn is not showing for some strange reason. Anyway, so make sure that you get a copy there. If you're on LinkedIn and you're not seeing this, I don't know why the comments are not showing, but you can go grab them from YouTube or from Facebook. So there's the values list. I put a very comprehensive 400-word values list. You'll get to understand how that all works out when we get into our training. And then I've also got the special offer, the special workbook, which I'm going to just speak about in a moment. So let's get into the video today. So my presentation this morning, and that will help you to kind of get, going with what's happening. So hold on as I share my screen. Alrighty. So today we are, oops, what am I doing now? Oh, I'm so behind. Let's hold on, let's get to the right. Let's get to the right. It's one of those where I've shared the wrong screen altogether. Hold on. Okay, there we are. This is the right screen. So today I'm giving this offer. It's still on. Those of you that are serious about making a difference with this year, as in the 2024, you want to do something, get your journey started. There's this booklet. It's normally 100 kwacha going right now for 50 kwacha only. You can follow the link which has been shared in the comments and you can get yourself a copy of this. It's only 50 kwacha. Grab it now. This is going to be running as a special until I'm done with this series, which is in the next 6 or so weeks. So make sure you get a copy of this and it'll help you along. This is, for those who are serious, this is a very, very good booklet to really get you started on the journey itself. So make sure you get a copy of that. Now, who are you really? Pause and consider deeply. Last time I asked this question, it was very, very difficult. A lot of people, let me go back to that slide. A lot of people have a very big challenge when it comes to identifying who they really are. So the big question I gotta ask you today is, who are you really? So a lot of people tend to get caught up between roles and identity. And today I want to go a little comprehensive in that space. I want to show you this slide. So let's look at this. So a role, hear this one. A role is a socially prescribed pattern of behavior, usually determined by an individual's status in that particular society. And examples would include a father, a mother, a husband, a wife, a teacher, a worker, a team leader, a pastor, a friend, a brother, a manager, a politician, and on goes the list. Now, what I want to find out from you, which I think is extremely critical here, is when you look at yourself right now, I want you to take your, this is one day that I'll ask you to get a pen and paper, sorry. But the aim is very simple. I want you to look at this list here and ask yourself, list roles of who you are. So if you are a father, write it down. If you're a husband, write it down. If you're a teacher, write it down. If you're a team leader, write it down. If you're a pastor like me, write it down. If you're a brother, write it down. If you're a politician or a musician, write it down. Put down all these roles that you play. Okay, so this is a very, very important exercise. I want to actually give you 30 seconds to do that. This is so important. And there's a very good reason why I want you to do that. So let's take that exercise real brief. I've got a very powerful little counter here. So I'm going to run my counter for 30 seconds as I wait you to do this exercise. So make sure, remember, father, mother, what's your role? List them all down. Now, if you're driving, obviously you can't do this. So you just have to listen. But this is a really good exercise. And I want you to score yourself, because not only are you going to list these things, I want you to score yourself on a 1 to 10. 10 being absolutely excellent, 1 being, not much desirable. I want you to score yourself against each role. What score are you giving yourself? As a father, what's your score? This is not the score you'd like to be. This is the score you really are. What are you? Put that down. As a wife, what's your role? Put that down. Sorry, what's your score? Put that down. Worker, team leader, pastor, whatever role it is, list all the roles you know, and then score yourself. Let's do this. Alrighty, so I hope you've done that exercise, and what I want you to do once you've added all these, so once you've put all these scores, I want you to add them all up real quick. Just quickly add the scores up. So let me give you another 30 seconds to add Alrighty, so I'm sure you got yourself a pretty cool looking score. So put that down. So a number of you maybe are sitting at 40 something, 50 something, 60 something. I don't know. Whatever score you have out there, just put that score there, write it down and keep it with you. I'm going to come back to that. Let's go to the next item. Now we're going to look at identity. So an identity is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. Sameness of essential or generic character in different instances, which means the whole idea of integrity makes your identity as well. And sameness in all that constitutes the objective reality of a thing. So in other words, it's consistent, integral nature of being. That's what identity is. A pretty difficult, description. So now, in this case, what you will notice, very interestingly, is that when it comes to identity, the focus moves away from roles and moves to character traits. That's what I'm speaking about, character traits. So in this case, what am I saying? I'm saying, what character traits do you have? Now, no one's going to give themselves a bad character trait. So I know you're all going to list some pretty neat sounding character traits: honest, sincere, positive, friendly, loving, caring, giving, respectful, and on and on and on it goes. So what I want you to do, again, for the next 30 seconds, my dear friends, you want to list all the character traits that define you. Now, the truth is, when doing this exercise, if you really want to get the most powerful result, when in a group, you ask others to write 5 qualities they know about you. So you ask all the people, like in the whole group, each one writes 5 qualities about their friends in the groups. And of course, you have to know each other. Like a family, you know each other. So when you start to write down and list those things, you'll be amazed what traits come up. Both positive and negative, but either way, these traits come up. So I want you for the next 30 seconds, again, to list down as many character traits you think define you. This one you might need a minute because there's a bit of thinking there. So I'm going to play the 30-second clip twice because you need to really take your time and kind of get this right. So let's do this. Let's get started with that exercise now. Alrighty, so I hope you were able to list some character traits. I am sure a number of you are still kind of stumped in that. But for the next 30 seconds, what I want you to do is I want you to score yourself on each one of these. And those of you still trying to figure out what your character traits are, add them. But what I want you to do is for each one. So suppose you're honest. Are you really honest? Can you give yourself where would you be between 1 and 10? Are you shrewd? Are you smart? Are you, whatever trait? Think of a trait that defines you. Astute, assertive. There are so many. So think about as many things you can think about yourself. List them down, and this time around, when I run in the 30 seconds, I want you to score each one from 1 to 10. Again, I'll repeat myself. 10 is excellent. 1 is deplorable. So where would you gauge yourself? Remember, you're gauging according to who you really are, not what you aspire to be. Please remember that. So even on the character traits here, on identity, put what you really are. Like, if you put those things and show the person, like your wife or husband or your friends or relatives, they'll say, yeah, that's definitely you. So those are what I'm talking about. So for the next 30 seconds, try and do the scores on every one of these. Alrighty, so now that we're done with that, this should be a very exciting and interesting answer. Now I'm about to give you a scoring, and I'm going to show you something very interesting, and you will see. As for those of you who've done this exercise, you'll actually go, you okay, I didn't know. So you're going to see. What I want you to see is your self-residual image. Who do you see yourself more as? Who do you identify more as? Is it your roles or is it your identity? Which of these two are you more identified as from your own intrinsic viewpoint? So meaning you and what you see of yourself. So let's look at this. So now look at the two scores. So you've got a score on roles, you've got a score on identity, the total scores. Now, if you have scored higher on your roles, then that means you are more identifiable, you are more outward focused. In other words, you define yourself by your role. If you score higher on identity, it means you define yourself more by your identity rather than your role. That's a really interesting thing. Now, let me give you a real scenario with all this. What are the implications? Suppose somebody's identified more by their role than they identified by their identity, or others who identify more by their identity than their role. What are the implications of this two? Here's the thing. The challenge with being identified by your role is that I have said before in previous presentations that roles change. So what does that mean? That means, for example, a father or a mother, parent, you go through different phases of parenting. And so many times these phases run through different seasons in our life. Let's go back to that so I can look at it. So these things run through different seasons in our life. So if, for example, you're a wife or a husband and you become a widower or a widow, or you go through a divorce, that brings an identity crisis for a number of people, because now they don't know how to identify in the new role that they found themselves in, because that old role has expired, it has gone away. And this is true of being a manager, it's true of being a worker in some office somewhere, of being a businessman, or whatever it is that you are. The interesting thing about roles is they run for seasons and they come to an end. And also there are roles that you get into depending on what stage in your life you're in. And so your ability to be fluid from one role to the other is critical to your well-being. And many times it's that fluidity doesn't come from the role, it actually comes from the identity itself. So knowing who you really are means knowing your identity. Now, when we talk about identity, there are two key there are two key factors to determining identity, like what really makes identity. When I say, who are you really? Like, who are you? Two things make your identity very powerfully. The first one is your name. That's a really interesting thing. You know, I never realized, but a name is so critical because it is tied to not just your identity, but your destiny as well. And that's why in many cultures, a naming ceremony is a big deal, big deal. Even in Christian culture, when you're baptized, many times you assume a name. And it's interesting, in a number of circles, even those who undergo a rebirth, like, you know, becoming born again, you take on a new name. You'll find that this is not just in Christian circles, even in other circles, in cultures. When you get into a new dispensation, you take on a name. I'm sure you've seen this even in ceremonies. Like, for example, when you become crowned a king or a chief, you get a new name. This is, I mean, even the Pope, you know, papacy rather. If you were known as the Bergoglio, for example, our current Pope Francis, he picks a name. So he picked the name Francis because obviously he has a big affinity and love for the Franciscan philosophy and the Franciscan friars and what they stood for, and their founder and patron saint, which is Saint Francis himself. So you find that this idea of picking a name is very critical It's not something to belittle or play down. It's so amazing that a name can even shape the destiny of a person. That's why what you name a person is so important. Who you name them after is so important. Why you name them is very important. I mean, it's so important that even God had to be specific when Jesus was about to be born. He gave very clear instructions. He told he told Mary the name of the child. He said, your child shall be named Yehoshua. He saves his people. You see, that's such a profound thing, my friends. So it's not something to belittle or underplay. So that's the first component of identity, your name. I always remember the film Kunta Kinte. And you know, in Kunta Kinte, whenever they were naming a child, they would follow the custom of West Africa. I think it's the Ashanti tribe or the Fulani. I'm not very sure which roots that Alex Haley and his family hailed from. But obviously what they did is that when they were having a child, if you remember Lion King, same idea. You know, the child would be lifted to the moon or to the sun, usually to the moon, and the name called out. And I loved the phrase in the film. They used to say, behold, the name of the person. So like in this case, Kunta Kinte. So they say, behold, Kunta Kinte. And then they would say, the only thing greater than yourself. I love that. You see, what's greater than you? Your name. And that's why God speaks about a good name or a bad name. So, ladies and gentlemen, watching this, name is critical. That's why a lot of people even change their names. You know, for whatever reason, they may be called a name by a parent, but they wake up and change the name. And a good example in the Bible is the famous Jabez and the well-known Bruce Wilkinson book, The Prayer of Jabez, which was about his name. My name caused bitterness. May I not cause bitterness. He prayed to counter the meaning of the name. So names are very powerful. That's what you have to understand. That's the first component of identity. Second component of identity, your environment. Now notice when we're doing the exercise on identity, what did we do? We talked about character traits. Where do character traits come from? They come from your environment. We are literally a reflection of our environment, community, and culture. So the culture is what makes who we are now in terms of our identity. So on the one hand, you've got your name, but the other hand is your culture. And that's why culture is so powerful in shaping the destiny of every person. And that's why, again, it's so important to examine your, but how can you examine your culture when it's an intrinsic part of you? So this identity and culture is a big deal. That's why I always jokingly say that you can tell a lot about a person by just listening to them and seeing their behavior, and you can start to tell or guess where they're from. So besides their accent when they speak, but when you look at their behavior, you can tell. So stereotyping through culture comes this way. So if I talk about different countries, what comes to your mind? I mean, let's play this real fast, but I'll try and do this quickly because I need to do values real quick. But let me ask you a question. When you think of Nigerian, what comes to mind? Type it in the comments. When you think of an Indian, what comes to mind? Type it in the comments. When you think of an American, what comes to mind? Type it in the comments. When you think of a British, what comes to mind? When you think of a South African, what comes to mind? When you think of a Kenyan, what comes to mind? When you think of a Zambian, what comes to mind? And on it goes. Australian, Japanese, Chinese, every country. You'll note, interestingly, that there are certain traits already. There's an image in your mind because of interacting with those people. Germans, what comes to mind? Swedish, what comes to mind? Norway people, what comes to mind? Every country. Italian, Mamma Mia, what comes to mind? You see, those, whatever you're thinking right now, those traits, that's the culture of those people. Now, of course, we can end up stereotyping people, but it's a culture nonetheless. And that, again, is a powerful mark of identity. So, I really hope that you guys have been able to catch a thing or two from just that presentation alone. I want to go into core values real quick, and I've posted for you 400 values. because this will be part of your exercise that you can do. So core values are the fundamental principles that guide your every action and behavior as an individual. So which means, if you think about it, your identity and your core values are very intertwined. In the case of a company, they provide the moral and ethical guidelines for all business goals and decisions, as well as forming the basis for your company's culture. There you go. There's that word culture again. So you realize that core values and culture are inseparable. You realize that whether it's an individual or an organization, the culture is part of the identity. So if you look at Zambia, for example, and you see a horrendous culture in government, in terms of the civil service, in terms of state-owned enterprises, what does that say about our culture? Zambians are not known for being assertive. What does that say about our culture? But interestingly, if you get into Zambia and start going region by region, you'll notice very interesting differences. If I mention a Bemba, what comes to mind? If I mention a Tonga, what comes to mind? If I mention a Lozi, what comes to mind? If I mention somebody from the East, specifically Nsenga, Tumbuka, Ngoni, what comes to mind? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how powerful identity is? Let's even go by regions. When I say Kopala, what comes to mind? So what I'm trying to tell everyone watching me and listening to me is that core values and culture are tied. So every character trait we just spoke about, that's part of your identity. It just depends on what exactly it is. So if you go back to those character traits, somehow you already were somehow speaking your identity. So these core values are fundamental principles that guide your every action and behavior as an individual. So you'll notice that your core values, your culture, and your identity are all intertwined. Now, I'm going to share some of my values, but at the end of the day, remember that document I've shared. Your job is to go take that document in your own time and begin to look through it. There are 400 different values there, so it's quite loaded. That's why ideally you should print it or PDF it. It's already a PDF, and then go through it and mark all the all the values that resonate with you. So go through all of them until you get that. When you're done with that, then what you do is you want to extract those, put them on a separate list, and start grading them 1 to 5. 5 being least important, 1 being most important. List them 1 to 5. Go through all the ones you've extracted. Then the ones that score as 1, pull them separate. If there are more than 5, then try and think of only 5 out of that lot. Like really score them so that the highest, most resonant becomes that. And remember, these values must match with what you aspire to achieve. So for me, these are my core values, personal core values: authenticity, communication, compassion, loyalty, and learning. I've really made a big deal of these. Then I have a company called Destin Peak Pro. These are my core values for my company: quality, service, integrity, reliability, and innovation. Now remember, I am pretty much a one-man operation right now. So this is pretty much me. But as we grow, as we become bigger, as I get more people on board, we will have to revise these things in order to come up with something, far more ideal and far more realistic and true to who we will be as a company. When I start running ministry as well, same story. I'll need to find something that's going to tie in powerfully with my true identity as an individual. So these are things that they do take time. You need to kind of work through them over time. And as you do so, you will get to know what is real and what isn't. Now, note this. Using those core values, I've also created something called a corporate core values statement of truth. This statement of truth takes all these statements and all these values and turn them into statements, and they are what we call a present continuous statement. It's not a I want to be. It's not a statement as if I want to be. It's a statement of what I am now, even if in reality I am not that thing. So here are the 5 examples incorporating all those items. I am showing you all this because I want you in your own time to go and carry out this exercise I've just done. So you realize that you can get this off the booklet that is 50 kwacha. So here we go. So number one, always deliver overwhelming value and outstanding service. So there's the word service right there. That's big. Integrity, authenticity, and accountability are absolutely paramount. So that's the second statement of who I am and what my company represents. Number three, pursue excellence through education and innovation. Number four, foster a spirit of fun, family, and friendship. I'm big on family, I'm big on friendship, but I also believe in laughing at myself and enjoying and having a good time in everything I do. Number five, live our lives with purpose and work passionately towards our goals. So these are what I call my corporate value core statements. Now, remember, as we go on in life, obviously these things keep changing. They're not cast in stone. And I always tell people that be dynamic, always be revising, reviewing all that you have in order to come about with what is absolutely profound. So, having said all this, I have come to pretty much the end. Once again, an appeal. The booklet is going at 50 quarters. This is the booklet that you're going to use in order to help you. Now, for the what you call it, for the other one, let me just highlight it. This is the comprehensive download link. I had shared it earlier. There it is. This one you can't click on the screen right now, of course, but it's in the comments. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, you will see this link. Go there and click on it, and it should take you through. There's the link for the one underneath scrolling. That's the order booklet. So here are the details that, in case you don't have them, there it is. So that's the one. So make sure you get a copy of that, get a hold of that, and it should be able to help you in as far as being able to make a progress is concerned. This download link, by the way, is free. So you just need to enter your email and voila, you have the download link. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for being a part of what we are here. We always come through every single day, and we look forward to being absolutely critical in helping you to understand and grow what you're doing. So on that note, go back, in case there was so much in the video and you're like, oh, I missed the exercise. Go back, do the exercises if you need to. Think about your values, core values, put them together, create a statement of fact, a statement of values. I think if you can do these exercises, you'll be awesome. Where are the instructions for all that? In the booklet. I've just taken an extract from the booklet to create this training today, but you can get all these things in the booklet. So on that note, join me again next week, unless I'm doing on Wednesday if there's an emergency. Join me next week as I take you through yet another very, very exciting topic, which is on knowing your position. So we're going to be looking at what we call the 8 arenas of life. And Sylvia, Coach Sunshine, Dr. Sylvia Mwanta, she teaches the 6 key areas. I do the 8. So don't get confused. Just know that they all kind of match. So I do the 8 areas, and so we'll be looking at each one of them, and I'll be taking through a deep dive in each one of those 8 areas. You make sure you don't miss, make sure you're part of it. So on that note, thank you everybody. Glad you were here.